Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Firefights podcast, where we seek to develop, inspire, and motivate the world of the emergency services operator through a series of wide-ranging conversations. Now, before we go any further, just hit that rate, follow, or subscribe button on whatever platform you're listening to. It's a key performance indicator for us and helps us reach even more people. Now, here's what we've got for you today. Now, in September 2022, I was lucky enough to board a flight to Vietnam, where I'd be jumping in swamps, climbing up hills, and taking on one of the toughest challenges with an entire group of incredible, crazy, quirky, amazing, and inspiring individuals who I'm lucky enough to call my friends, as we all went over and took part in SAS Who Dares Wins. Now, with any kind of TV production, they are always constrained to fit the absolute best bits into a short window of time. So as you won't be surprised to hear, there is so much more to these individuals than meets the eye. So on this mini series of podcasts, you get to listen in as I catch up with this incredible group of people. We discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly as it comes to SAS Who Dares Wins, our favorite instructors, our biggest challenges, and also learn a little bit more about what drives them, what inspires them, and how this journey was for them. It's been so much fun reminiscing and catching up, so if you are sitting comfortably, let's buckle up for safety and get in there with today's episode. I'll see you on the other side.
Hello.
There she is.
How you doing?
She's looking all glossy with the gorgeous hair and everything. We don't use the video, but it's beautiful for me. Thank you so much.
I didn't know you wore glasses.
Yeah, I know. I'm one of them.
Is that like reading glasses versus?
You know what? I should probably wear them more than I do. I don't know. Do you think there's any evidence when people say, like, the more you wear them, the more you reliant you become on them?
I think that's true.
I think it is true. But no, I wear them when I'm driving for everyone else's safety. I think it's important.
Just in case.
Well, what? I think we spoke about it when we were away. Like, driving is a crazy aspect of trust, where you are driving maybe 90 miles an hour and there's a 6-inch white line between you and all the crazy people, myself included. So I feel just like... Yeah, it was when I started, probably about 2 or 3 years into when I started driving the pumps. I was like, I need classes. Because you're driving in the middle of the night, you get up, most people can't get up and operate anyway. But when you get up and then you're suddenly behind a massive vehicle, you're kind of like, yeah, I can't see very well. So, no, I wear them when I'm driving. And ironically, even though which one is it? So if you're short-sighted, you can see things close, right?
Yes.
And it should be obvious, shouldn't it? There's only two kinds.
Yeah.
I can never. Anyway,
I think it's either like obvious, like if you're short-sighted, you can see things close, or it's the other way around. And I don't know if it's the other way around or not.
Either way, I feel like I can see things close up fine. But nonetheless, when I'm working on my study and stuff like that, when I'm working for ages, I tend to wear them, and that kind of suggests otherwise, because I know I struggle with long distance. But anyway,
yeah, maybe it's just I was getting tired.
I'm kind of okay. But
yeah, you can get by without.
Sometimes I actually feel like as well, it makes me look like less of a meathead. But I don't wear them for other people's benefit. But when I wear them, I don't know, it's a kind of subconscious thing. People kind of take it a little bit more seriously. But yeah, anyway, I do need them.
That's the thing. I used to wear like blue light blocking glasses, just like the clear ones, whenever I did like Zoom stuff, because apparently it's like a psychological phenomenon that people perceive people who wear glasses to be more intelligent. So I was like, right, interviews, glasses.
You know what? Seriously, as much as people say like we don't judge somebody by their looks or anything, like, don't judge a book by its cover, it's BS, because we all do it, and it's like, it's embedded in us as animals, because when you see something, you're like, is this a threat to me or not? So, and also like I remember reading a study whereby like if you went up to a group of kids in a cul-de-sac and you were looking for directions, you would instinctively ask the taller person. And there's a thing, I think the French Prime Minister is one of the very rare anomalies amongst it, but prime ministers, presidents, and all that sort of stuff, they tend to be either general height, like over 6 foot, or tend to be a little bit taller. And then we also do the whole like deep voice thing and all of these subconscious things that sort of draw us to people. But I mean, as like a girl, have you ever had to, this is going to sound like probably a bit cringy, I don't know what I was going to say anyway. Have you ever tried to look, I can't say it without it sounding like a weird, anyway, have you tried to look less attractive at times? Because like you've said before, like you've worked with professional teams with nutrition and stuff, and you're always trying to gauge whether or not somebody sincerely wants your advice, or certainly working with personal trainers in the past.
Or they're just trying to get in your pants.
They're just trying to get in your pants. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Gore-Tex Professional Fabrics. Now, we all know the working environment of a firefighter is filled with challenges. We face serious risks on the job, such as heat exhaustion, burns, physical and mental stress, and we frequently come into contact with high levels of toxic chemicals. Now, I have been wearing Gore-Tex for nearly 2 decades on the front line, working in hostile environments, tackling challenging incidents from firefighting to water incidents and in urban search and rescue environments. Gore-Tex have a well-earned reputation for protecting professionals in the fire and emergency services through their family of highly innovative, waterproof, breathable moisture barriers that exceeds global performance standards and are trusted worldwide. Gore-Tex, going further together.
Do you know what? I'm one of those people that will actually just take full advantage of it. Because there are statistics, aren't there? Like more attractive people tend to get more job offers, and more attractive people get shorter prison sentences. And I haven't had to deal with this yet, but it's true. It's like a thing. Like there are statistics around it, and it's horrendous, but it does kind of work in your favor, being small and blonde and conventionally, dare I say, pretty.
Yeah, but also, even if you're not conventionally pretty, just keeping yourself in good shape, as much as people are, oh, that shouldn't matter. Well, it should be important for you, just as a human being. Yeah. Like, do you want to live a little bit longer? But it's the age-old sex sells as well. It's like, you want to work around people that make you feel good. And, working around people that are attractive or nice or whatever, I don't know, we get spiral straight into a rabbit hole of egotism and elitism there. But anyway, how the hell are you?
I'm good. Do you know what? I don't know how I am. I think I still have that bitter disappointment. And I think as more and more people I imagine you're feeling this as well, as people who got further in the process are kind of joining the WhatsApp group and being like, oh my God, had such a good time. I'm feeling a little bit jealous. And I hate saying 100%. I feel jealous, but I do feel jealous of the fact that
I almost don't want to ask them how they got on past that bit, because I'm like, I'm still really there.
Shit time.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds so harsh, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How did you cope? Because you didn't struggle with the physical aspects of it at all. I remember when we were talking, because you'd done a whole bunch of ultramarathon stuff. You'd your high level diving for ages. So the physical aspects.
Overtook you bear crawling. I think it was you.
Yeah, you did, bitch.
It was either you and Zach or you and Ross. I can't remember who it was. To be fair, I Billy being like, "Come on, number 20." Come on, number 20, get him. And I was like, okay, yes. I don't want to upset anybody. I'll go between them. It's go between them. They can't fit, but okay.
You did do some specific training for it though as well, didn't you? I think everybody did.
Everybody did. What, the very specific training that I did, or because the very specific training that I did was practicing a pillowcase over my head with swimming goggles on. That was
no way.
Yeah. So Howie, the psychologist, said to me afterwards, he was like, you dealt with being hooded really well. And it was like, I practiced that bit. I literally sat in the dark with a pillowcase over my head and put my swimming goggles on, so I get used to the fact that that's what it feels like. And that's the bit that you can train for. Because I'm very endurance focused, I had to add in more gym stuff. And in hindsight, I probably didn't add in enough gym stuff, because I definitely wasn't as strong as some of the other girls. Although, having said that, my Bergen was definitely absolutely soaking wet and so heavy. Well, because it was soaking wet.
Did you see some of the, I'm not going to name names, but did you see some of the chats that were coming around about people
ditching weight?
Yeah, basically just ditching weight. There's no other way to put it. And that is going to look really poor. I mean, it'd be interesting. Ironically, obviously, this will go out after the whole thing gets released. But it'd be interesting. I've never seen that dynamic actually on any of the shows before, where someone, and we're only speaking from what we know now, almost appears to actively try and cheat the system, and that probably just sounds like a bitter thing of people that went out early. But yeah, it seems to be. I'm not.
But really neither of us went out early because of our physical capabilities. I think that's important to remember.
Yeah, I mean the psychological aspect's been massive. I was speaking to Amelia, I spoke to Anne the other day. Amelia, certainly, it was something that she really struggled with, was that aspect of control, whereas you're a lot more yeah, for her it was definitely not being in control, and she's had some sort of huge revelations. I know it's something she was working on with her partner for a little while anyway, but for you, again, the physical aspects of it weren't really a challenge for you.
No, it's I think in terms of fitness, I know I'm disgustingly fit, I run ultra marathons for fun. Like
Yeah.
I'm not a conventional runner in the sense that I don't run like a 40-minute 10K. I
Mm.
run a 12-hour 100 kilometers. And so it's like that's my level of like yeah, like my level of fitness isn't really hard for about an hour. It's like being able to keep going and going and going for 12 hours.
Yeah.
Um, which also demands like a level of fitness anyway. And then I think I have good swim fitness, which really helps. Like that definitely helped in what we were doing.
Mm.
Um, was that like I didn't realize I was quite as good a swimmer as I was. And then was just like first out the water on the first
It's
one,
when you
second out the
compare
water
to
on the
some other
second one.
people, I always say when you try and convince people to add fitness, add swimming into their fitness routines, it's such a ball ache for some people because it is, they talk about like the steps of being able to engage in something. Fitness for some people is really difficult because they make it super complex and make it to like 20
Yeah.
steps. But to be fair, swimming, if it's not something that's part of your natural routine or you've ever done it, was really
It's really
hard.
hard to get into.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Stephen, bless him. I swear to God, even with me pushing him, I thought Stephen's not going to fucking make this. I don't think he could swim at all. Bless him.
Rosie learnt to swim for the course.
No way.
Yeah, Rosie
Oh
didn't learn to that, and
wow.
she astounds me. Like she's incredible. I can't wait to have like a really good sit down and a good chat with her when she comes out, because
Yeah.
she was really worried about her levels of fitness going in. Like especially running and swimming were the two things that she's like, I don't run and I don't swim.
Hmm.
Um, and a lot of the selection is running and swimming.
Yeah.
So although we didn't do as much running as I kind of anticipated, I
Yeah.
anticipated a lot more like trekking, hiking, and that's kind of like what I do is keeping going at like a moderately quick pace, but not so fast you're going flat out for like a long time. I know is a feature of like actual selection on like the hills phase. Like if you hear any, like if you listen to 7,000 podcasts about SAS selection, like I did before we
Well,
started.
you've had like clients and one of your exes was in the military of some form. I'm not going to go into detail of what you did or
Yeah,
anything like that, but so you did have a good insight into what was potentially going on
to
with
be
it.
required.
Yeah,
And
but it was
then
hard for a lot of
obviously
people
you
because it
binge
was a
watch every
condensed
series.
version. So I know people felt mixed views about that, but I was looking forward to them just throwing a load on our back
Yeah,
and
and
going for
going.
going for 8 to 10 hours or
Yeah.
something like
And
that.
I'm disappointed that I didn't get to the point where I got to do that, but like it's okay. But yeah, I like had no qualms about my fitness. So the day after I came off the course, I borrowed a bike from the hotel, rode like an hour out to go to this viewpoint, ran up the steps. Like there was like 500 and something steps, like jogged up. I only had a few hours, so I was like, right, I've got to get there and get up and get back. Ran up to this viewpoint. I think I sent you the picture. I can't
You
remember.
did, yeah.
Um, but yeah, Hangmoir was where I went. It was like an hour's ride out, on just like a sit-up lady's Dutch bike, and then an hour's ride back. Like legged it all these steps, ran back down, an hour's ride back in like 34 degrees, 100% humidity, and was just absolutely fine. And I was like, so it wasn't my body.
No, no, no. Why did you do that?
Um, I think I wanted to feel like I'd seen some stuff before I went. I didn't want to kind of just like do the bit of the course that I did and then leave having not really seen anything. Like I love Vietnam. It's the most beautiful country.
Hmm.
And I wish I'd been more eloquent in my mirror room because I had Chris and Billy and they asked me how I found I was finding the terrain. I think I was like, it's fine. I don't hate it. And they were like, why don't you hate it? And I think I said something like, I was kind of anticipating more of a Jungle Book, razor vines, snake hanging off everything. But I think like what I wish I'd said was like I couldn't hate Vietnam if I tried. Like I completely love it. Fell in love with it in like 2020 and have been dying to go back. So when I found out we were going back, it was like it feels like coming home, which it sounds really weird for someone who spent 2 weeks there 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
There's a
What year
beautiful
are we on?
simplicity to the
2022.
place, though, isn't it?
It's so simple. Like
Hmm.
nothing should work, but everything works.
Yeah.
Nothing is particularly organized, but it all just kind of flows around each other.
People are so polite as well. The aspect of service there, and I know we were kind of like staying in a nice place, but even when I was out running around some of the like local commune and stuff like that, people were just so goddamn nice.
Everyone says hello to you, everyone waves at you, and that probably is something to do with the fact that they must have thought the Second Vietnam War was starting or something, because we were rampaging around with like backpacks on in our boots, and they must have been like, "What the hell is happening? Do we need to be preparing for something?"
I think we were lucky to be able to be in the natural park as well, wasn't it? I've never. Did you see any other areas of the place when you went before? Because obviously I felt very lucky because we were just bang smack in the middle of ultimately a nature reserve style thing, weren't we?
Yeah, so where I've been previously, I started in Hanoi. I hadn't been to Ninh Bình, which is where we were we were filming near there. But I went to Phong Nha, which is a bit further down south. Which is like very similar, like those ginormous cliffs, lush rainforest, green, lookout points, rivers, like very similar. A bit more like Jurassic Park is Phong Nha, so it was the Cook Phong jungle bit, I think, that we were in.
I'm always astounded by your memory. I thought this because we were having chats and stuff when we were over there. Your memory is goddamn bulletproof. I'm not sure if
Memory
there's
for
something
like
wrong with my memory, like if I've got early freaking Alzheimer's, or if I just don't care about things. Because like I can remember films and I can remember songs and stuff like that, but when somebody goes, "When did this happen?" I'm like, "In the past." I don't know, and I was there, But I'm just like, it's just so fleeting for me. You've got a bulletproof memory for stuff like that.
I think it's photographic. So I only remember that because when we did that jungle lesson and when we were sat in that little cabana,
Oh
the
yeah.
first piece of paper was like some like facts about the Cook Fong jungle. And I just remember it saying like that was where we were. And I think because I was like, I want to know where we are. So I can Google it later. I think that's why it kind of stuck in my head. But yeah, I can remember like what was on the pieces of paper that he was turning over and like what it looked like on the piece of paper, like the two-step snake. I can remember what the picture of it looked like.
Have you always
And
had that?
like, yeah, I think so. I think that's the only reason I did really well in school because I could just like I just had to remember all the shit and then just write it down on the page. Like I got 100% in GCSE PE literally because I just covered my book in revision and I could remember where everything was on all the pages
Yeah.
and what it looked like and the fact that like aerobic respiration was in green and anaerobic respiration was in orange or whatever I'd done. And I could remember like the spider diagrams I'd made, and on the spider diagrams I could see where like the bit was that I'd written about it, which I didn't realize that not everyone can do that. I thought that was a completely normal thing.
No, because I remember we were talking about the memory game, weren't we? We were talking about the when I go on holiday thing.
Yeah,
And I kind of
comments
had that
time.
system for it, and I wouldn't be able to do it without the system. But your memory just seems to
And
just,
I was just
I
like
don't know.
dog peach, umbrella, shoes.
Yeah.
How do you not
Well,
just
what's the
remember those
system? You're like,
things?
just fucking remember it, you idiot. You didn't say that, but it's like, it just seemed natural to you. When did you first
Even
start doing
when
some of the sports stuff? Because I didn't want to jump past that. Firstly, I wanted to
okay,
ask about the ultramarathon craziness because
yeah.
that is a very strange. I've spoken to a few other people that do ultramarathons, and they've said to me a few times it's far more of a mental thing than it ever is a physical thing. Because it's not like I say, it's not like sprinting. Yes, arguably it's kind of against the clock, but we've got like a proper hard on for some eco challenge ideas that I know we want to try and look into afterwards. But
I love that expression.
when when did you start having this idea that you wanted to push yourself to stuff like that? Because you also did diving before, which is kind of random.
Yeah, so I started way back in gymnastics when I was like 4. And I think by the time I was about 7, 8, I was on like the British gymnastics
Shit.
program to do gymnastics like well. But I couldn't do a backflip by the time I was like 9. And if you can't do that by the time you're 8, 9, you're kind of no good to anybody in gymnastics. And I didn't like it, and I didn't like being shouted at. Like common theme, didn't like being shouted at. Didn't like being shouted at. And my mum, so it was someone that I'd grown up doing gymnastics with. Our mums had kind of like still knew each other because they lived really close to us. And she was like, "Oh, well, Holly's diving. Why don't you try and get Charlotte into diving? Because it's a really nice crossover from gymnastics."
Yeah.
And they have these, or they had when I did it, these diving for gymnast programs, which is like basically just a conversion course. So my mum took me to one of those, and I think that was where I had my first ever panic
You grew
attack.
up in a fucking Olympic village or something. Where did, because you've got siblings, you've got like 3 or 4 sisters, haven't you? Have you all been
I've
into?
got 3 sisters. My sisters all swam to like Olympic trials kind of level.
Wow, because
Um,
swimming is no fucking joke. I always say to people,
yeah,
as much as
it's
they're like,
hard.
"Oh, it's just get a pair of pants and goggles," I'm like, the fucking commitment from the parents, because it's like 5 a.m. sessions, 5 days a week, or probably even worse, and then every weekend you're doing a gala somewhere in the goddamn country.
Yeah. Luckily for us, a lot of the galas were at Leeds or Sheffield, so we were quite lucky in that respect. But the people that came up from London for swimming galas, like most weekends, mental. Yeah, so Leeds is like really, really good for sport. They had the old Commonwealth pool, so we used to train at the old Commonwealth pool where they
Uh,
all or where they obviously had like a 50-meter pool and all the facilities. But yeah, I did this diving for gymnasts thing. I think I had my first ever panic attack. So I remember just like this feeling of complete overwhelm, and we were in the gym doing some like dry land stuff before we got in the pool. And I remember just like being so overwhelmed by not knowing what I was meant to be doing, feeling like I wasn't doing it well enough, and just being like And I remember I just sat on the floor and just cried because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I think that was the first time I ever had a panic attack. So I must have been like 9. Obviously at the time I didn't know. I thought I was just like a bit upset and overwhelmed. And then got in the pool, and I think I got out after about half an hour, and I was like, Mum, I'm never ever doing that again. And then 10 years later I retired from diving. um
What did your parents think about it when you were that young? Because how easy is it to differentiate between I'm scared and I'm worried? Like if a kid is scared of something. My daughter's 10 now, so she'd have been around that sort of age, and I've been with her to
yeah.
gymnastics, to swimming, to badminton, to football clubs, and sometimes she's great, and then sometimes it just like, mind you, she never has that debilitating, almost paralyzing feeling, or I don't think she does. I can obviously, it's not right for me to assume how she feels, but I think it felt like it's personal for everybody. What did it actually feel like, and how soon did you start understanding that it was a thing? And also, as like a third question, is there an argument for when you start to identify it as a thing, you almost attach it to part of your personality? Maybe I'm making an assumption there, I don't know.
So back then I didn't. I just thought like I think the class I went to was a bit too advanced because they were taking like I was the youngest there, I was the smallest there. I was the one with like probably also the least gymnastic experience. So I'd been good at gymnastics, but I hadn't been doing like double back somersaults on the floor. Whereas some of them had been, some of them had come from like really high level gymnastics and then transferred over. Whereas I'd come from like medium level gymnastics and like doing some acro and stuff like that. So I kept the gymnastics up. But I think mum kind of realized that the class was probably just a bit too advanced for me. And I was just like a bit overwhelmed by the fact that they went that to go fall off that 3 meter board backwards. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, no. Basically was the reaction. Um, so mum found a a bit of a more introductory, like entry level diving class because she was like, you I think she knew I'd be good at it.
Yeah.
Because I'd always been like dancey, ballerina-y, gymnastic-y. And it's like, right, we're not going to waste, there's no point wasting these skills that you've been developing. Let's transfer them into something else. So like mum and dad were very compassionate and just very good. Like I look back and I'm like, they were brilliant parents. Um, so I think, what was the question? How do you start attaching it to your self-worth?
Yeah, when did you start thinking like it? Because did your sisters ever have similar struggles? Because what I'm hearing like there, when you say like it was too advanced for me, everybody's probably been in a situation where they've felt like they're a little bit shit compared to some of the other people around them. But I don't think that's remotely the same as the sense of feeling that people get when they feel like they sincerely are having a panic attack. And I think it's probably a disservice for anybody to say, oh yeah, I've had that before. Probably fucking not. I don't think I've ever suffered one.
Yeah, so the difference is it's a completely paralyzing feeling. Like I've been in situations where I don't know anything and I know that I'm a bit shit at it. Like I can't ice skate to save my life, which you'd think for someone with like quite good balance and coordination, I'd be able to do it. I can't do it. And like and I'm completely okay with that. And I don't get that like full paralyzing fear. It's like I'm really shit at this, and that's quite funny. Like mini golf as well, or like even any variety of golf. Can't do golf. And I find that like just funny, and I know that I'm really bad at it, and it's fine. Even when I played tennis with Simon, even when I first started playing tennis, I looked like a donkey like having a fit or something.
Like
Like
a spastic giraffe of some
a
form.
spastic giraffe, that was what I looked like. I don't know if you can say that. Is that
Tennis,
PC? But
oh
that's
yeah, probably not. Tennis is fucking hard though. I love playing
tennis is really
badminton.
hard.
Badminton rocks. Tennis, I'm just not very good at. It's fucking court is huge. I
Yeah.
think there's a massive spectrum in being good and being shit at tennis.
Mm.
Whereas I think badminton, most people can kind of play badminton.
You can kind of do it. You can get over the net.
Get away with
Yeah.
it.
So I think I'm open to being like really bad at things. Even when I first started running, I was really bad at running. I think the difference is how many people are around when I'm doing it. I
Okay.
think I think I have that like fear of judgment. Like when I first started playing with tennis with Simon, I felt a bit like oh about it, but it was okay because it was just him, and he was like, "I'm not judging you for this. Like everyone's rubbish when they start." He'd been playing tennis for years and years and years. So yeah, it's not just like a oh, I'm not very good at this kind of feeling. It's a completely debilitating shutdown response, and that must be protective in some way. But I don't know why I have it. But I never attached it to my personality because I think it probably just didn't happen often enough. It was in that like very extreme situation of being plopped
Yeah.
straight into the middle of a because I remember some people from that class and they went on to be like phenomenal high level divers. I
Well,
think
you
I
dived
actually
with
ended up
Tom Daly for a period of time, didn't you?
I dive at some of the same competitions as him. Like not
That's
like
pretty damn good then. Yeah, I'm not saying you were teammates and you taught him how to dive.
I didn't teach him how to dive.
Taught him everything he
Um,
knows.
but yeah, like you'd be at some of the same competitions and stuff. Like I never got to the point of doing like senior British national championships. I left when I was 18, which is kind of like the cutoff for age groups. So I competed like age group nationals. Didn't quite get to like the senior nationals, which is like the Olympic selection type nationals. Where it's like the GB teams from. But that's okay. But yeah, like I don't think I ever attached it to my self-worth back then, or like my identity back then. It's like I wasn't, oh, I'm Charlotte and I panic at things
Yeah.
high. It wouldn't have been something that I'd have defined myself by. That definitely crept in later when it became more frequent, more debilitating, and intruded on my life more. I think it's almost very normal to have panic attacks in abnormal situations, or not even have panic attacks, but to panic. Like it's very normal in those extreme situations where you're literally like the psychologist talked about it before we went into SAS. It's called drop shock, where you're literally like dropped into the middle of something and it's just a massive shock and your body's like, the fuck is happening right now? And
Sensory
everything's
overload,
like,
isn't it?
like
Yeah.
alarm bells screaming, everything's on fire, that kind of feeling. But I think when it started happening without like an obvious trigger, that's when I probably started attaching it to my
Yeah.
self-identity because
Yeah.
that happened a lot. And now it seems to have more of a trigger, like it takes something to trigger it. Whereas there was a time when I would just I'd be just in the bathroom and just hit the floor for no reason.
That must have been. Did you ever try taking? Were you ever given medication for it, or did you ever try and seek professional help for it and all that sort of jazz? I don't. I know it doesn't
Yes.
necessarily always a solution, and there's probably a whole bunch of quacks out there. I remember you telling me about what was it? It was why has nobody ever told me this? Is that what the book was? What was it called?
Yeah. God, why has nobody told me this before? Which is it's brilliant. It's basically just a self-help book, but it's written by I think she's a clinical psychologist, which are like the ones that have the title of doctor. I think she's Dr. Julie Smith, I want to say, or something like that. But yeah, like that was a really helpful book. So I didn't investigate medication until probably late last year, like mid to late last year. I tried so SSRIs are the first line defense for PTSD. Or like the first line intervention. Like GPs, you go to your GP and you be like, help. Like my mental health is really bad. And they go, okay, like you've tried some therapy. I tried some therapy. I really struggled to get on with a therapist, or to find one that I liked. And
Yeah.
I don't like that like therapist head tilt therapy voice, like, oh, I'm really, really sorry about that for you. And it's like, I just want to have a chat with you about this. Like, I don't need you to be sorry for me. And it's nice that you are, but like, can we not? Like, it feels a bit condescending, and I know it's not, but it feels like it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried. The first one I tried was sertraline, and I was epically suicidal and wanted. Yeah. So they tell you it gets worse before it gets better, and it doesn't happen with everyone. Um, but yeah, and this won't happen with everybody. Some people respond really, really well to it because the aim of SSRIs and like antidepressant medication in general is that it just narrows the spectrum. So it takes you from existing or from feeling at this complete extreme end of absolute elation to this complete extreme end of the depth of absolute despair. And it just brings it in a notch so you don't quite get that high, but you also don't get
So it kind of
ridiculously
narrows the
low.
spectrum effectively, because
Yeah, it narrows the
it's
spectrum.
serotonin, isn't it? It's
It's a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, so it
That's
acts on your
exactly what I
serotonin
said.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one.
That just sounds like when you start messing with stuff like that, though. So obviously the thought process is that some people just secrete too much serotonin, or they have the inability to control it.
I think they don't really know is the difficult thing. Like depression isn't necessarily linked directly to how much serotonin. I actually listened to a really good podcast about this the other day. There's an Andrew Huberman one about like trauma and treating trauma. Really interesting. And it's not necessarily like you can't necessarily take a blood test and go, oh, there aren't enough serotonin metabolites in your blood, which means you're probably depressed. Like it doesn't really work like that. But somewhere along the line, something goes wrong chemically or whatever.
You have
And
to
for
do
some
some of
people,
the
it really
visceral
helps.
work as well, from what I understand, because and again, we're all just sort of well, me probably more than you. You've actually done the reading, but like you can take a whole bunch of serotonin inhibitors, and you've seen people increase doses. But if the mind doesn't go with the chemical, if that makes sense, like you can over egg the chemical as much as you like, but and I'm not saying it's a placebo, but if you're not also putting the infrastructure in it, I always think of like painkillers, and please, I might be being horrendously offensive, so correct me if I'm stepping on toes here, but it's like, if you've got a bad back, take some pain relief whilst you get the bad back better, or you put some methods in place, or you develop some, exercises, symptoms, control measures, whatever it might be. But painkillers indefinitely is not the answer to fixing your back. Am I right in saying that, or is that really offensive?
Yeah, because with like opioids especially, you just need more and more and more and more. And it just gets like, that's why people are addicted to opioids, because they start taking them for the back pain and they never fix the back pain. They just assume it'll go away on its own, and then like keep taking opioids, and you need more. And like opioids are really like dangerous. But yeah, I think one of the reasons why SSRIs didn't really work for me was because that potentially wasn't the problem. And like I think that happened. So I tried this one called sertraline, was just suicidal. They tell you that it might get worse before it gets better, and I couldn't for life of me get over that hump of it getting worse. It got worse, and then it just sort of settled. Like it got really, really bad, and then it kind of settled at really bad instead of like really, really bad. I was just like being snuggled on the sofa, like wrapped in a duvet, and just being like, I don't want to be here anymore. Like I don't think I deserve to be here anymore, which is horrible.
Yeah.
And so we kind of went, right, this isn't the right one for you. So I tried another one called citalopram, and I felt really like manic, which is again is a side effect that they warn you about. But I just like I couldn't sit still. I felt really like if I started laughing, like it felt really manic, and I felt like I just wanted to cry, because I just like everything just I don't know. It's so hard to explain unless you've experienced it.
I tilt my head out of interest, not out of what you're on about.
Yeah, it was like just manic, and the other times just absolutely blank. I was like a blank vacant slate, just like there's nothing behind my eyes, and I couldn't connect. I couldn't hold eye contact, which also in my job isn't particularly helpful. Like I have to talk to people about meaningful things, and I didn't give a shit. Like I didn't
That's what
care.
I mean, though, because like as much as this was probably going on from university stuff to the business that you run to your just genuine magnetic clear drive and just the way you interact with people, I found you so engaging when I was over there with you and when we spent time together. And I'm not saying like, oh, that must have been all bullshit, but I'm like, it must be like a totally different side to your personality, because you're quite a high achiever, not only from the sports perspective, but the way you try and live your life now.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you've been doing that whilst holding a big fucking kettlebell the whole goddamn time.
Yeah. So, but I say, yeah, my personality just completely changed. And I wonder how many relationships break down when people start taking SSRIs, antidepressants. Like, just because I just wasn't there, and I didn't give it. Sounds really bad, but I didn't give a shit about Simon. I didn't care about his feelings at all.
No.
So that lasted about a month, and then I was like, I can't do this one. I think Simon was like, I don't like this one. And
well,
then
Simon's
I tried another
kind
one.
of quite educated. I mean, he's not a mental health expert, but obviously he's quite well educated in the healthcare, for want of a better description.
Yeah, so Simon's an ACP, which is like an advanced clinical practitioner. He pretty much does the same job as a GP. So he prescribes these things to people. And I think seeing me taking them has made him think more about like just kind of prescribing them for people and going like, right, actually, like this is what might happen. This is what you might need to expect. So I think it's been eye-opening for both of us.
Is there an aspect in there as well, though, with the greatest respect to Simon, because they say it about like doctors that become parents and stuff like that, the burden of knowledge, where if you're on as we all are, like you're on a journey of self-discovery, trying to find a strategy or some tactics to help navigate this, to be able to enjoy your life more, alongside somebody that, with all the best of intentions, may likely feel as though, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know Simon, he would be forgiven for thinking, well, I've already done this reading. I kind of know where I'm at. I prescribe this stuff, or I'm aware of this stuff all day. You should be doing this. But if that doesn't correlate with what you're feeling and how you're, because you're also in a relationship, so it's not like he's not your friend. Oh, he's obviously your friend, but he's not a friend. He's not even a family member. He's your intimate partner. So it's like,
I think he's really well placed with it, because like he admits that like GPs have to know a lot. They have to know they have to know a bit about everything, but they don't know everything about one thing. Whereas if you went
Yeah.
to a cardiac something or other, like a cardiac consultant, cardiologist, that's what they're called, they would know everything about every little bit of your heart. And some of them are even specialists in like a valve in your
Yeah.
heart,
Yeah.
like that tiny bit. Whereas Simon has to know something of everything.
Yeah.
So I think there's that thing of like, will never necessarily know everything, but has a very broad understanding. And I think has probably seen the range of symptoms as well. Like even things like sexual dysfunction is a side effect. And it's something that he's now more like open to having conversations about. I don't know if I'm gonna say this, but like I imagine it's easier to have conversations with patients about being like, right, and cool. So you're taking this sertraline and you feel better. How's your sex life? And it's like, oh, I broke up with my girlfriend because I don't want to have sex with her anymore. Like that
You
kind
know
of
what?
thing.
I kind of went through that whole thing as well. Like, we spoke when we were away about when I stopped taking masses of steroids and my just fucking
Yeah.
sex drive went through the fucking floor.
Yeah.
And I wasn't masturbating. I wasn't interested sexually, not even just like with my partner, but like with anybody. And I'm
Just
a
like
goddamn
don't care.
serial flirt with everybody, but I was never driven to go, God, I want to just rip the clothes off this person with anybody, and
It's
that
like
was
don't
really
care.
difficult, both for me personally, because I also worried at the time. I worried that I didn't care. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
That it worried me that I didn't worry about it. And I was like, but this is like it wasn't like a beat my chest kind of man thing, but I was like, I genuinely feel, and even now, having gone through that, I feel some people will have sex once a month, once a day, once a week, whatever. And I don't think you need to have it on the diary, but like, it's an important part of life. We were speaking when we were away, if you go through all of life and you've never really been in love or you've never had it, you kind of missed the whole fucking point of being here. And that worried me. And like when you said like having that blank feeling or struggling to connect with people, I felt like I could probably exist like that forever, but it didn't.
Yeah.
There was something visceral about me that was like, I don't think this
I don't need it
isn't good
anymore.
humaning. I should be a
Yeah.
better human than this. I'm missing the
Yeah.
point of connecting with people.
Yeah. It's like I should want this. But
Yeah.
yeah. But then I just like I didn't. And like you were also like part of dysfunction is like you kind of can't as well. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
work.
Oh, it didn't work.
And
Yeah. I've had that
it's
moment like
it's horrendous.
5 or 6 times, probably more than that. And that was really like, and that makes the girl feel horrific as well because they obviously
Yeah.
start questioning themselves and they're like, oh, am I not attractive and this and that. And you're like, oh, fuck, it's just fucking me. I'm just
And
broken.
you're like, I promise it's not you. Like, I
Yeah,
promise
yeah,
this is
yeah. And there's
entirely
like
me.
the
And they're like, well,
harder you
obviously it's
think
you
about
because
it,
it's
the more
me.
it
And it's
doesn't want
not.
to do anything. It's just like, that is just one of those self-perpetuating moments of hatred. And some people say, oh, it's when I drink too much. It's when this and that. For me, it was just like, I had just messed up my testosterone receptors or whatever it was, all self-induced, but yeah, not a great point in time. So you stopped taking the medication eventually.
Yeah, so I tried another one, which was called fluoxetine, and I felt sick for a month, like felt really nauseous for a month, didn't want to eat anything and lost a shitload of weight, and also had no energy to do anything. So I was like, this is not the one either. Because they were like that symptom will calm down. It did not calm down. Like it settled to a point where I could eat 2 to 3 meals a day and not throw them up. But like just didn't want to and would quite happily just miss meals and be like, oh, I don't really want anything. Like I'm not a like I don't have much of an appetite anyway. I'm quite small. I don't have much capacity for food. So taking that not much capacity and like semi-permanent malnourished state and then adding nausea to that just really isn't a good mixture for me. I have to not be proactive with it, but like I can lose weight really easily just because I'm just not I stop being bothered.
Yeah.
And I'll go through periods of time where I'm like, oh shit, I've got skinny because I've just it probably been training a lot and just not eating enough to support it. And I think when the danger comes when you can train a lot without eating enough to support it and you don't really like feel it that much.
Is there an aspect of massive discipline in there as well, though? Because and you're obviously a really disciplined person. And when you were speaking then, there's so much correlation for myself in the fact that, like, if I want to do something, it's very much like just a calculation of what I want to achieve physically, or even with my career or my jobs or my projects, something like that. I can really easily just start eating a certain amount of food in a certain amount of way and put on a certain weight. But when people say, oh, I struggle to do this, or I struggle to lose weight, I'm like, the risk of sounding like fucking James Smith or somebody, it's like, I can easily just cut that down and lose weight
Yeah.
so fucking fast, so fast. I could easily, I accidentally practice fasting on an almost regular basis. So if I've got a lot of shit to do and I'm just like, I'd prefer just to be a bit leaner at the minute, or just, and I can easily drop half a stone so
Yeah.
stupidly quick.
So I think I probably have less tolerance levels because I'm like smaller, physically smaller. I have less
Yeah,
body mass to lose. Um, so it doesn't quite ever go as like as far as dropping half a stone, but like losing 2 kilos looked quite dramatic on me.
yeah.
Um, it's going from like 60 to 58 or 57 to 55 is quite a big jump in terms of like percentage of my body weight. So I love food. I don't like skipping meals. I love having breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And I'm quite like routine with it. I know what I like. And I tend to eat very similarly every day just because I'm like happy with that. And I've had my share of like weight struggles previously. And I think my body weight is more linked to my emotions rather than my discipline. And I know that previously, when I've not been good, not been feeling good, like mental health hasn't been in a good place at all. And like I gain weight because I use food as a bit of a crutch, which is what I like. It's something that I help my clients with. And actually, ironically, since I've been helping clients with it, I've got better at it myself at not using food as a crutch. But I know that when I was in my old job, I was probably like 65, 66 kilos at my heaviest compared to like me at sort of like
What did
59,
you used to
58
do?
now. I worked for a nutrition education company and it was basically just an office job. Yeah, literally just an office job. I was in the
You
office
studied
for
at the uni there as well, didn't you?
yeah. So I did my masters in Loughborough, loved it, had a great time, got this job and stayed on. So I was in Loughborough for like 3 years,
Yeah.
which had its upsides and downsides. But yeah, like when I wasn't particularly happy down there, towards the end of being there, like just found it really difficult to then lose that extra kind of 5 kilos that don't sit comfortably on me.
When you say don't sit comfortably on you, and I don't go too far down this rabbit hole, but why does it overly matter what you weigh, or are you saying you felt or you didn't feel good, or like you're?
Doesn't feel good. Like
Because I always say to people, I don't give a fucking hell what weights, what the scale says. For me personally, half the time I don't really know what I weigh unless I step on the scales. I more just
yeah.
go off how I look and how I feel.
Yeah, so for me it was more about feeling bad. And I think generally that's like if for me, I think weight that's gained quite quickly doesn't feel particularly nice and it like impacts your performance, it impacts your
Yeah,
running performance, your clothes don't fit particularly nicely. I think the longer that you sit at a weight, like the better it kind of looks on you because you probably get a bit of a recomposition effect. But for
yeah.
me, like adding 5 kilos of body fat in the space of about 5 months probably didn't like it wasn't a great, it didn't feel
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like it doesn't feel nice. And yeah, I really like I struggle to lose it. So I'm not one of those people who can just be like, yeah, I'll just turn it on. I used to be back when I did some bodybuilding stuff.
Oh shit, I forgot you did that as well.
Yeah,
You did the bikini stuff, didn't you? Because
I
you were pretty
did.
bloody strong actually after you came out of the swimming and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, so I did a season. I did like a year. So I did probably like 2 years really hardcore in the gym. Like I stopped running. I say I stopped running. I probably would run like max 5K.
Yeah.
Um but like I really stopped running and really started focusing in on gym training because I wanted to do a sport, but I didn't have time to join a team because I was training so much. Not training, I was working so much. So I was like, I don't have time to join these sports teams that like play on Wednesday afternoons,
Yeah.
train at this time because I'm at work. So I was like, what's the hardest thing I can do without having to join a team? And I was like, bodybuilding looks kind of hard. Everyone says it's really hard. I'll do that. And just kind of did it. Really didn't get that much fulfillment from it. I love training. Like I love training more than I love racing. If someone went, you can never race again, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm kind of like that to be honest with you.
it's so much. I used to love training more than I liked competing when I dived. Some people live for the competitions, and I'm like, I just want to train.
Yeah.
Um,
Wonder why
but yeah,
that
I
is.
used to have like 125 kilo deadlift, like 110 kilo squat. No, I never got to 110. I failed at like 105 and tried 110 and then like epically failed at 110. Which for someone at the time who weighed 55 kilos, like it's
Oh yeah, if you can double your
yeah,
body weight
it's
on
a
a
lot.
deadlift, you're doing well. You're doing very well.
Yeah. So yeah, I had like a decent amount of strength. And I just remember getting on stage and being like, I can out deadlift all of you, and I don't even get the chance to like perform. or do
It's a
anything.
strange thing, bodybuilding, isn't it? Because so much of it is based on someone's
Yeah,
opinion. It's not like a
yeah.
metric. It's not like running. If I go faster than you, that's it. Or
Mm,
lifting, or throwing a fucking javelin or whatever it might be. There's so
yeah,
much impression involved in it, and I just think, with the greatest respect, having sort of flirted around the edge of that sphere for quite a long time and taken off the stuff that all of them take as well, it's like it's almost a study in mental health disease and sickness, and I really worry about anybody that goes down that rabbit hole. To be honest with you, I don't
yeah.
think I've not seen it end well.
Like it can end well, like 4 or 5 years after you finish competing. But I feel like the 2 to 5 years after you finish are an absolute shit show,
Hmm.
for most people. And I think so. I've had people come to me before and been like, "You competed. I think I'm going to do it. Any tips?" And I'm like, "Don't." And they're
Yeah.
like, and I'm like, "Don't, because this will happen, this will happen, and this will happen." And they're like, "Okay, no, it won't." And then go off and do it. And they come back to me and they're like, those things that you said would happen, they've happened, help.
Yeah.
And I've worked with quite a lot of ex-competitors who've come out with like I did, a really fucked up relationship with food, using it as a crutch, just this chronic restriction. And it's not even just restriction of calories, it's like restriction of food groups, restriction of food types. Because when you're dieting on like 1,300 calories a day, you don't have room for chocolate as much as anyone wants to diet flexibly. You don't have room for cake and ice cream for pudding
Hmm.
in the same way that like I do when I just live my normal life.
Hmm.
Um, which is really hard unless you want to be absolutely starving for the rest of the day. So it's like most people come out with a really screwed up relationship with food. And I think that subjective aspect of the sport and the fact that I'd always done subjective sports, gymnastics is subjective, diving is subjective, then bodybuilding was subjective.
I think that, yeah.
Yeah, so I really wanted to do a sport where I could just cross the finish line first and win, like for once, which is probably how I arrived at running.
Yeah. So, what made you actually want to go on the show?
On Who Dares Wins.
Yeah.
Um, I am all for crawling around in the mud. I love it. When they were like, "How are you finding the environment?" I was like, "I friggin' love it. Like, I want to swim in the river. Can we get in it?" I was like, "I'm so happy being like muddy and wet and cold." I do that for fun on the weekend. Of course, I want to do that. And yes, I'd like to jump out of a helicopter as well. That'd be fantastic, please. I love pushing limits with fitness. That's why I do ultra marathons. Like I started training for a road marathon and I was like, just it's just not doing it for me. Like road running really doesn't do it. And then I kind of accidentally fell into trail running just on the off chance that there's like loads of trails up around where I used to live.
Yeah.
And I just kind of ended up going for runs on them. And I was like, this is great. Like, is this a thing? Because I'd kind of heard of fell running. And I was like, that's for like old men in really, really short shorts. It's fell running who are like really wiry and really quick because I didn't like cross country. I hated cross country. I still hate cross country.
Why?
Why do people want to run around muddy fields in really tiny shorts in the middle of winter? Like, I don't get it.
Because
I
it's
want to
easier on the
do
knees. It's easier on the
not
knees
in
than
like,
fucking road
oh,
running sucks.
yeah, like, but I hate cross country racing kind of running. I'll happily go run cross country, but I
Yeah.
don't want to run in circles around a field.
Hmm.
And I used to hate it at school when we had to do it. So I kind of discovered trail running by accident. And you get to take in all these beautiful places, all these different terrains. You get to see like woodland and all this stuff. I can't remember what the question you just asked me was.
Why you wanted to take part in the show?
Oh, I
But
want
it
to
makes
take part.
sense. It makes sense. You're going well.
Yeah, like loved this discovery. And then I feel like I'm not quite as fit as I was when I ran Race to the Stones, which was the 100K that I did. But I was like disgustingly fit back then. Like I don't know if I could go out tomorrow and just run a 50K just for fun.
Yeah,
But I
again though, it's
probably
the way you
could.
define fitness though, isn't it? Because that was very much a one-dimensional fitness. I think the version of you then probably would have really struggled with these aspects of it because you hadn't done any of the work in terms of the gym stuff and stuff.
Yeah, so I think I knew I was fit, so I knew I wouldn't actually struggle with that kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I think once you've run 100 kilometers with like a semi-torn Achilles and a semi-broken foot, like nothing kind of feels that daunting from like a physical perspective. So I started the 100K with like a really, really shitty Achilles, took some paracetamol at 60K and managed to finish it off. And then at 77 kilometers, I went down like it was either like a rabbit hole or a little ditch or something, and just like really quickly turned my ankle. And I just remember this like searing pain up my leg. And I think I just tore most of the ligaments and it was like instant bruise. So I was like, I've got 23 kilometers left and just had to like power hike the rest of it. And I was like, right,
Some
you're gonna
dogging
like
shit right there.
run, yeah, run 5 steps, walk 5 steps, power hike, go. And I was literally like dragging my foot by the time I got to the end of it. It was so painful. Um, but one of the beauties of ultramarathon running is you can't really drop out. There's nowhere to go when you're in the middle of Salisbury Plain. Like it's like, right, you can run 20 kilometers in that direction to the end, or you can run 20 kilometers in that direction to the nearest village where there might be a phone. You might be able to find someone to call you a get home if you can get a taxi to that point at that point on a Sunday night. So you just have to like you kind of have to keep going. You don't really have a choice. So yeah, just finish it. So I knew I could push myself physically. I knew I could push myself mentally. And then I think part of it also was to do with my history of like assault. And I think I've thought about this a lot since we finished. And I think there's this little bit of me that was like, if I can do this, it's like redemption or rectifying everything that's happened previously. And if I can get through having four very big, like they're huge, like four very big, scary men shouting at me to like do things and like all that kind of jazz that comes with it, then everything that I've experienced previously will be okay. And I think I was probably looking for Who Dares Wins to kind of fix what's happened previously or prove to myself that it wasn't my fault or prove to myself that it's like it's like women who have been in an abusive relationship you usually end up then going on to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more abusive relationships. It's that I can't remember what they call it, but it's like the
Stockholm
redemption.
syndrome,
Yeah, and like
where they
almost like the
fall in love with
redemption effect,
they love fall in
captor,
love with the captor.
the
I think there's an
repetition,
aspect of that.
repetition effect or something.
Yeah.
Is where you basically like you seek out those situations again so you can do it right the next time. And I think I sought out the most extreme version of that I could without actually having to be sexually assaulted again. That that could then be like, right, see, I can do this. I did this right this time, and that means that the previous time is like redeemed. I'm redeemed for that or something.
How old were you when this happened then?
23.
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, it was just before my 24th birthday, and I've just turned 27, so it was 2019. Um, yeah, and it was someone that I thought I should have been able to trust, and
Were you in a relationship with them?
no, I can't say who it
Oh,
was
no,
for
no,
like,
no. I would never ask you to.
but yeah, like it was someone that was in a position of trust, and it should never have happened. And I think I blamed myself for a long time. Like even to this day, like I know it wasn't my fault, but there's still that little bit that's like it was your fault. And it's really, really hard to get through. And that was the point at which I really started having panic attacks after that happened. So that kind of happened in probably like I think it was like the July 2019. And in August, I got a kidney infection and spent a week in hospital. And I think it was like the first week I'd had away from this whole situation.
Yeah.
So I was like off work, in hospital, like septic, spiking fevers, really not having a good time. Apparently, like almost like pretty close to if I hadn't gone to hospital that night, I'd potentially have died.
Yeah, if you get
Um,
septic, yeah.
yeah, like really not good. And I had this week to just think and to just like for everything to kind of crash down. I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but when you stop moving, that's when you kind of get tired, or like you
Mm.
take a week off work and you get ill, and it's like you don't crash until you stop. I
Yeah,
stopped and I
absolutely.
just crashed. I crashed and I couldn't come back from it. So that's when I really started having panic attacks after that. And I remember just being the first time I had a really big one. I was getting ready to go to work and just sat on the floor in my bathroom, just sobbing, hyperventilating, shaking. Didn't know, like, I didn't understand what was happening. I felt like I was dying. And I was like, have I got another kidney infection again?
Can you
I
feel
thought,
it when
like,
they're coming on then, or does it just hit you like a wave?
I can now. now that I kind of know what to look for and know what to expect, it feels like this wave rising up through my body. Yeah, like someone's slowly lowering you into hot water and you can just feel it like flooding your body.
It's a great analogy.
The way I kind of describe it is imagine you jump out of a plane and you go to pull your parachute and you realize that someone's cut all the cords. It's that moment. Like if you can imagine what that level of like fuck might feel
Yeah.
like, it's that moment where everything just goes like poof, and everything just implodes. That's like the absolute catastrophe moment. And you don't get to just close your eyes and wait to die. You have to go through it. Like you have to keep going and going and going until it subsides.
That's got to be
So
exhausting as well, though. That kind of adrenal fatigue of that constant dump of panic.
yeah, it's really tiring. And you get, or I get, like a panic attack hangover the next day,
How bad? Yeah.
especially if,
It's like
especially
when
if
you
it's
have a
been like
car
a bad,
crash and you've just had all of that surge.
yeah,
It's so exhausting for the body. Even if the body hasn't actually been doing anything, the mind. It's like when you wake up from a nightmare. Obviously,
yeah,
not far worse than that, but in a similar fashion,
everything's racing.
everything's racing. Your body doesn't realize, or your mind can't tell the difference between what was real and what isn't real. So even though you feel like you can identify what's happening, your body is still going to race through those chemicals and put you through those emotions, even though rationally, like for your
Mhm.
example there, I know I'm in the bathroom. I know I'm not a threat. I know I'm not falling out of an aeroplane.
Yeah, but it still like hits you really hard. Yeah, it's exactly that. So the way that panic attacks work is basically your brain just short circuits and you just absolutely bypass that logical bit of your brain that's like, no, like nothing's actually happening. I'm I'm in this room with these, it's like in the mirror room, I'm in this room with these two men and neither of them are going to rape me. But my
Yeah.
brain can't deal with that. It's like it's just this short circuit of like
Yeah.
panic, ah, like dump, panic, ah, and like it just bypasses all the
Oh.
logic. And it's really hard to then get it back to that logical thought. So, on day one, I had that mini panic. I don't know how much will get shown, but I
Yeah,
had that
when
little
we
panic.
came down the steps,
Came
or
down the steps.
yeah, because we got there, you were bang, you were straight off the boat, you swam it, we smashed it straight up, we did the workout, but then I lost sight of you when we went back down.
Yeah. And it started when we came down the steps. And do you remember we had to like crawl down them? I've got so many cuts and bruises still from that.
Yeah, that
It
was a
hasn't
rough
healed yet.
moment. I was just
We
smashing
had
the
to,
fuck out of my knees and elbows. That was.
had to like bear crawl down and then like slither down. And he literally, Rudy pointed at me and was like, "You," and I was like, "Oh," he went, "You." Bunny hopping from you. So like had to just like start bunny
Yeah,
hopping back up the steps. And it's the first time I've been shouted at properly in years. Um or it's the first time probably since that instant that I've had any kind of like threat of
yeah,
violence.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Um and I knew that he wasn't gonna do anything. He wasn't gonna hit me. He wasn't gonna
But again, that
nothing was gonna
rational
happen.
mind can't differentiate in the moment. Your
Can't
body's
differentiate it.
physically going through something, which it was in your
Yeah.
original, when you were in your early 20s, and then this aggression is coupled with that physical exertion. Your body probably can't tell the difference.
Can't, and you're already in this state of like your breathing's heightened because you're bunny hopping up some like 200 friggin' steps,
Fuck, you've just had a fucking microphone attached to you. You're passing a camera every 30 seconds.
lobbed out a boat. I had to
Yeah,
swim.
people are trying to push past you. You've just met them. You don't want to feel shit. You don't want to feel like everyone's better
someone's
than you.
doing
Someone's pointing at you and shouting. You don't know what the fuck they're on
someone's doing
about.
burpees with their
You
arse in your
think,
face.
yeah,
Like
you're like a,
that was okay. So that was the moment at which like that wave just like rose up, was when we were doing those burpees on that the bottom of those steps,
yeah.
and I remember just being like, and it absolutely crashed, and
Oh,
everything just kind of like short circuited, and so I don't think Chris quite knew what was happening because he was like screaming at me to keep going. And it was
yeah.
like, "Don't stop." And I think Foxy recognized what was happening and came over and was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I'm just panicking." And he was just like, "Calm your breathing." He was really, really good with it.
Foxy's
He was
really
so
good, isn't he? He's
compassionate.
really good. I think because he's had PTSD himself, and him and Billy, but certainly Foxy. If you've read any of his books, I think he just has a much better understanding of the psychological aspects of it. Having been through lots of injuries himself, yeah, I found him really. I think he's got high emotional intelligence and stuff like that.
Very emotionally intelligent and could obviously see that, like, actually, no, this isn't just that she's not stopped because she's tired. She's stopped because she's like, she's hit the floor. And that's what it feels like. It feels like you're a puppet on some strings, and someone's just cut the strings, and you just go bang. And that's how quickly it feels like it happens. So yeah, I had that
How did
like
you pull
mini
through that
panic.
though? Because you didn't let that overcome you, because obviously you joined
No.
us.
So I can pretty much control them with breathing, which sounds so hippy dippy and so
No,
like,
no, no, no. It's not fucking
but
magic
if you
crystals. Breathing definitely works.
it works. But if you basically if you breathe out harder than you breathe in, you can stimulate your vagus nerve, which stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. So your sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight. Your parasympathetic is your rest and digest, essentially. And there's this thing called a physiological sigh, which is where you basically go and breathe in, and then you go and breathe out really hard. And that stimulates your vagus nerve, which slows your heart rate, which slows your breathing. It slows everything down.
Well, this is
Um,
exactly what Wim Hof taps into, isn't it? That's the work that I've not done with him, but like in his studies. Yeah, sorry, but yeah.
no, yeah, like it's basically the same kind of thing. And you have to, if you can stimulate that system, you can, it's not even like emotion doesn't even come into it. You can just, if you can switch it on, you can get it back under control. But I have two like very distinctive types of panic attacks. One is just like vanilla flavored lemon and herb panic. I described it as like lemon and herb panic to you. And I love thinking about it like that. It's that very like, yeah, like vanilla flavored panic, which is just panic on its own, the physiological symptoms. Like I know logically that nothing's actually wrong and nothing's actually happening. My body's just reacting.
Yeah.
And then I have like extra spicy, someone's put the entire jar of peri peri sauce on it panic, which is panic with flashbacks. And
With flashbacks.
so anyone that has PTSD kind of might relate to this. Imagine you're having a nightmare, but you're awake and it's the nightmare of something you've already experienced. So like I I have flashbacks about like everything happening again and I can feel it and feel I can feel it in my body. I can feel my hair being pulled. I can feel like it's just
Fuck.
it's really, and if I imagine what you'll see in that episode is probably me like with my arms over my head at some point because I can feel it all happening again. And it feels like I need to protect myself and it's not rational, it's not logical. And then you can almost go like an an extra
Well,
level.
it's
So
kind of
sometimes
rational in a sense
it is
because
rational.
your body's associating a feeling with a physical response. I, if
Oh, she's
somebody,
gonna feel this again.
yeah, I'm going to feel this again, and I associate it with that anchor, which is, with the greatest respect, it might be male or female genitals, or it might be their hair, or it might be where they've been burnt or scolded as a child, if they've been like people putting cigarettes out on somebody or something like that.
Yeah.
It is logical. I know you're saying it's illogical for where the person might be at that point in time,
Hmm.
but the
But
sense of
it's very
overwhelm and the
logical.
panic has been so heightened at that very point, even though it's historic. So it is logical to an extent, but fuck, I can't imagine that.
Yeah, and then you can add an extra level. You can add the sprinkles on top, which is like dissociative flashback panic attacks, which is I was like very that's why I withdrew because I was like teetering on that level, and those are really scary. So those are like flashbacks, but instead of being able to rationalize that actually I'm just on my hands and knees in a swamp, um, with someone shouting at me to like crawl faster and do some burpees. You're not there. You're back in that room with that
Yeah.
happening all over again, and it's really hard to you stop hearing what's going on around you. You stop seeing what's going on around you. It becomes like really hard to stand up. Like you feel like you kind of like lost control of your body a little bit. It's really scary, especially if like I can kind of rationalize it a little bit more now because it's happened before. But those are the ones that I don't have particular, like I haven't had that often. But when they do happen, they're really hard to get out of because you're not there, like you're somewhere else.
Yeah.
You can't bring yourself back,
Hmm.
like by just going, right, switch on the breathing. You can't rationalize it. It's like, right,
Yeah.
this is, you're just having a panic attack, just switch
You're
on the
too
breathing.
deep
Like,
in the experience to
you're
have any
too
of
deep
that
in the
sort of.
experience.
Yeah.
When I handed in my armband, probably like that, like hands over head. And I think someone must have tapped Chris and been like, stop shouting at her to stand up because I don't think she can. And I just like I couldn't get up. And it's really frustrating because, like, me now sat here absolutely fine. It's like, oh, I could have just done those 5 more burpees and then done whatever we had to do afterwards. But right in that moment, I couldn't move. And I wish I'd been able to take 5 minutes just to go on my own, no cameras, take my microphone off, and just like absolutely breathe my way through it and then come back. And I think I would have been absolutely fine. I say that, I don't know, but like I would
No,
have
no, no,
thought I
yeah,
would have been okay.
yeah,
But that's not how it works, which is really sad. But yeah, like it's really frustrating because it's not my body that let me down, but it was my body that let me down. It was that
yeah,
like not being able to like actually have control of it. And I think I wasn't expecting to react like that, which is why I wouldn't have applied for Who Dares Wins if I thought that the reaction would have been that strong.
no,
Because
yeah,
I'm
of
at the point in
course.
my everyday life now where I don't really have panic attacks. I have the odd moment of panic, and if it turns into a panic attack, I can quash it very quickly, and like I can get through it very quickly. And that's the difficult thing about panic attacks is that you have to go through them. You can't necessarily like just put up a brick wall, or like I can't anyway. And that panic there just kept cycling. So it would rise up and I'd be able to just push it back down. But then it'd just rise straight back up again as soon as I started going. And as soon as you're like, your breathing increases, your heart rate increases again. And then it cycled for probably about 6 hours after I withdrew. And I was sat in Dr. Raj's office and I'd calm down and then it'd just be like again and it would just roll over and go again. It's like just a wave that just crashes.
Well, because even with great respect to Dr. Raj, like you're still not in control of being able to remove yourself from it and just
No.
almost like get hold of a railing. Do you know what I mean? Just get hold of some sort of anchor and say, all right, this is my opportunity to really recenter myself. There's so much noise, there's so much interruption all of the time when you're in that cycle.
Yeah. The best thing that happened that really was helpful was Kate gave me a hug because it's like you just need someone to like I
So
don't know
Kate, for
like
anybody that doesn't know, Kate's one of the
oh
welfare
yeah,
officers, isn't it? Yeah.
it was one of the welfare producers and she was fantastic and I think she just knew and she was like come here and she just gave me like the biggest hug and
I gave you a fucking hug.
you gave me a big hug
Fuck it.
but
I got
like
nothing on Kate's hugs. Fucking bitch.
Kate's hugs are
Honestly.
good
Okay.
but
I
in
need
that
to
in that
work on hugs, note to self.
like in that moment if
No, no.
someone
Yeah,
like
yeah.
if one of you guys had been able to like stop what you were doing you would have got shouted at if you'd come over to try and give me a
Yeah.
hug if in that moment I think if someone had been able to just like give me a hug and like just give me 2 minutes just to like recenter and calm down I'd have been okay but it was like that's not how it works.
That's so annoying. So, did you have a favorite DS? Because I mean, we spoke about Foxy and stuff there. I quite like to see Billy leading this time. I thought he was really interesting. I've read a lot of Billy stuff. To be fair,
I haven't read any of his books to be honest but he was so lovely with me in the mirror room. I had him and Chris and they were so kind because I thought I was going to get a shouting at like what the hell did you expect but they were so compassionate and like I said I wish I could have been a bit more eloquent I was like just absolutely beside myself at that point because you've also just been like one big scary man has just hooded you
yeah.
walked you for like 5 minutes through the jungle and you can hear things and you're going like tripping over his feet and walking too fast and just like whacking into him or not walking fast enough and then tripping over. So you've been led by your hands, blindfolded and hooded, which actually wasn't like the worst thing in the world. But like it's still like it's activating,
Yeah,
even
it
if
is.
you
Yeah,
know that
yeah,
it's
that's a
not
great word.
scary. It's activating. Being stuck in this room and you know there's cameras on you, there's lights on you, um, with these two big scary men. And I like as I said, I knew that they weren't going to do anything. They weren't going to rape me, but my body's like prepared for it. And I was sat there just like shaking. I wish they had my heart rate data from that because it would have been like, why is your heart rate like 300?
How do you stop yourself from just bursting into tears when you're back then? And what's the sort of I mean, obviously, because we have psychological support when we come out of the show and all that sort of stuff. But you've been there, you've tried some of that stuff before. You're still so young, and I want to feel. Is this sort of something that you think you can fully get a hold of? Is it something you have to work through? Is it what does it look like moving forward for you? because it would just fucking piss me off. And I know getting pissed off about it wouldn't actually make a blind bit of difference. That's probably a really ignorant, stupid way to think of it.
No, it does piss me off. Like I resent it so much. Like it annoys me, it frustrates me, it interrupts so much. It interrupted Who Dares Wins. I genuinely believe that if I didn't have panic attacks, I could have gone so much further, if not like probably got to the end of it.
Yeah.
Because I know that like physically I'm strong enough, mentally I can push myself through things. And I know that if that hit the floor moment didn't happen, I probably would still like be there finishing it off.
Yeah.
And like in my heart of hearts, kind of know that because that's who I am.
Yeah.
So moving forwards, things have got so much better in the past 2 years to the point of like, so the journey of like cringe healing is really hard because it feels like nothing's changing. And like you'd feel like you're not doing anything, nothing's getting better. And then you arrive at moments like Who Dares Wins and you realize how far you've come.
Yeah.
But you also realize how far you've got to go. Like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to get on the frigging plane.
Yeah, we said that. That's what I mean. So it acts as like a good yardstick, you know, and there
Yeah.
really is no finishing. There is no finish line. There is no achievement because as you grow, you know, you've now got a partner and you're thinking about homes and families and all this sort of stuff. So you as a person change as well. So, you know, you were working on the Charlotte of 2 years ago, but even the Charlotte of 2 years ago is a very different person now. Yeah.
So I think from here, I do think I can get to the point where I don't have panic attacks, or they are so infrequent that it's not a problem. And when one does happen, it's like a complete freak thing, and there's probably a very obvious trigger for it.
Yeah.
Like a very visible trigger as well. Like because being sat in a room with like two men shouldn't be a trigger for a panic attack, but for me it kind of is. Having someone just shout at you. And do you know what was really interesting in terms of panic triggers? I got screamed at because I say screamed at, I got shouted at. It was like, we didn't tell you to wear a fucking wristband, did we, number 20? That's meant to be an armband. They just find things to shout at you about, don't they? Like they just shout about things because that's what the show is. And as soon as it was like something that was directed at me that I could fix, I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll just fix that. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Like, so you fucking admin. Okay, I'll tie my shoes up. Like as soon as those things didn't phase me, like my personal highlight, drag your spindly carcass body out of the water. That's from Roxy. And when we did that swim on the second day, and then had to drag our Bergens out of the water, and that Bergen must have weighed almost as much as me getting that out of the water because they were so wet. I was trying to drag it up the bank and it got stuck on like a flipping vine. So I was like trying to get the vine
I
out.
thought mine was stuck on because I helped Stephen out and then I pulled my Bergen and Stephen's out. I was like, what the fuck is this? I thought I'd gotten stuck on something in the riverbed. I was like, shit the bed.
Kate picked mine up afterwards and she was like, oh shit. It's like, yeah, they're really heavy, aren't they? But yeah, like that kind of stuff I could deal with because it's something that I can do something about. Whereas it was the general shouting that I think triggered that intense feeling of like worthlessness. And I think that's what really triggers me is this feeling of like absolute worthlessness. Like you are absolute shit, you're not worth anything.
In whose eyes?
In everybody's eyes. In like that's to me, that's them saying to me, like when they're like, you're as useful as tits on a fish, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which absolutely cracked me up. But like when they're kind of
it obviously still it lingers somewhere.
Like it's funny in hindsight,
Yeah.
but like when you're basically being told that you're useless, which is what happened a lot of the time. Like it was the general vibe of the shouting was that like you're all shit, you're not doing good enough. When you're like, but I'm doing really good, I'm doing exactly what I'm told. I think it's when you're doing that thing of like you're doing exactly what you're told, because I think that's one of my big triggers is kind of the environment that I was in was very hot and cold. I never knew where I stood. I never knew like if I was going to have done well or not done well, and you could do the same thing 2 days running and it would like one day it was fine and the next day it wasn't. So it was almost that there's the psychological games that really got to me.
I get that as well because you'd operated for so long, both from education and then your business and stuff like that. It's like I understand the metrics, I understand the path. I'll just nail the path, which you've done time and time again. and it's very logical. I do the thing, I get the reward. When someone
Yeah,
goes, "Oh, you've done the thing, and today it's yes, and tomorrow it's no," or it was brown, now it's fucking blue, and you're
yeah.
like,
That was the vibe of like kind of the situation I was in
yeah,
that I couldn't do anything right. So I think that very much hit a nerve that I didn't really know was still a thing. Um, that was I think that was the really difficult bit. And I think if they'd literally just been like this jungle circuit that we're gonna do, go run around it, off you go, I'd have been absolutely fine.
yeah.
I'd have been like, you need to carry her over there. I'd have been like, cool, off we go. But it was that, don't fucking walk.
It was
Like,
gunfire, yeah, sporadic.
yeah.
It was, yeah. You
And
constantly felt like you weren't getting it right.
you constantly weren't getting it right and you could never get it right. And I kept trying to remind myself that like that's the game. You
Yeah,
can't get it right and you
yeah,
can't win. And that's the whole point. Like you could have done two different things in the same situation and they both would have been wrong. Like, when we did the tunnel,
yeah.
and I got I got out the other side. And so the tunnel was designed to be narrow for you.
Fuck yeah,
Like you still had to fit through it, which
yeah,
means that I, who am probably like half of your width in
yeah,
terms of like, didn't
yeah,
I crawled most of it because I could just fit through it. Like me and Rosie were like, was that meant to get really narrow?
yeah.
And by the time it was like I couldn't crawl and I had to go on my belly, I could literally just reach the end of the tunnel and pull myself forwards. So I just like
Okay.
pulled myself out the end. And Foxy went, "How was that?" And I was like, "Not too bad, Staff." And he was like, "Not too fucking bad." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "Do you want to do it backwards again?" And I was like, "Okay." And like went to start doing it backwards. And he's like, "Don't fucking do that. Get out." I was like, "Okay, I don't know what the right answer is." But you just have to go like, "Yes, Staff. Okay, Staff. I'll do whatever you want, Staff.
Yeah,
Like, how high would you like me to jump?" Yeah, like you have to be okay with the fact that you can't do it right. But
yeah.
that one was funny, just because I don't know. Yeah, you had to fit through it, and I was like, "Okay, Pete has to fit through this. Like, I'm gonna be fine."
Would you go back and do it again?
All I want to do is go back and do it again. That's
Yeah,
all I want to do. And I'd
yeah.
like to go with the hindsight of knowing what that feels like, knowing what being shouted at like that feels like. Do you want to go back?
Oh fuck yeah! Of course I want to go back.
Oh,
I'm really really annoyed about how it finished for me.
should we do a whole separate podcast about yours?
Oh no! I mean, yeah, I'll talk to anybody about mine, but yeah, mine was just annoying. I wasn't. I was very ready for all of it. I felt like, for better or worse, through a myriad of strange circumstances in my life, much of the stuff we did probably didn't get anywhere. Not just about the fit. Like, there was lots of people there far fitter than me, and I'm not one of the fittest people in the world. But just some of the strange psychological aspects to it probably sat quite close into my wheelhouse anyway, probably for lots of bad reasons, to be fair. But the psychological aspect was fine for me. I wasn't struggling with the physical aspect. I was very disappointed that my body just broke. It just snapped accidentally.
That must have been so frustrating.
Yeah, it was probably the safest environment we'd been in the whole time we were there. We were just out on a concrete courtyard.
So you didn't have to fight on the rafts on the lake.
No, I would have fucking loved to have done it on
Okay.
the rafts. I'd have loved to have done it in a pile of mud or in water and trying to drown each other or anything like that. No, we were just doing it. It was very beautiful, beautiful setting, but it was just on a concrete courtyard. And I just stepped back and took a knee, and I just felt my knee explode in a very strange. And I knew what I'd done as soon as I'd done it, because I've torn ligaments and tendons before. But it just felt like such a sad, pathetic way to finish, without going too far into it. But let's assume you don't have the opportunity to do it again, because you may very well have, or there's other things you could do similar to it. I do think, and zooming out on the self-awareness spectrum of, if you attach your self-worth, or if you attach your sense of success or closure to the ability to go back and do it again, you're very much placing that aspect outside of your own sphere of control. So assuming you don't, what does that look like? What else tickles your pickle? And what if we locked Charlotte up in a room tomorrow? What tools of your own would you be using to try and get you over this, or get you past this, or move forward? Because I know you will anyway.
Yeah, so this is the bit I'm really fighting with at the minute, is the fact that I probably won't get the opportunity to do it again. Because even on normal selection, I think you get like 3 goes at it. So yeah, I'm finding it quite difficult to get my head around the fact that like that was my go at it. That was how it ended, which is really frustrating. Like I've described it as feeling bitterly disappointed to to people who've asked. not even like, oh, that's sad. Like, I'm a bit heartbroken about it, to be completely
Yeah.
honest.
I cried about it. I think they probably even got me on the fucking show crying about it. To be fair, and I'm not a fucking tough guy, but I'm not really the crying type either because I'm a little bit of a sociopath. So, but that for me was very much that, just like, wow.
That's it.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah.
No, like the half of me on there was just me crying. So if I didn't, I'm surprised I didn't die from dehydration just from crying. But for me, crying is very much like an emotional release. I am a crier, and
Mm.
I'll cry at happy things. I'll cry from sad things. Sometimes I'll just cry because I don't know what to do with my feelings. And they're not necessarily sad or happy. There's just a lot of them, and the only way I can deal with it is just like have a cry. But yeah, the guy I was sat next to on the plane was very concerned when I literally just they bought some food and I just burst into tears, and I had to be like, I just don't like chicken or something. I was like, I can't tell you that I just crawled through a swamp, had a panic
Yeah.
attack in the middle of it, and got like, and I'm still kind of like cycling through the panic. But yeah, it's like, I don't necessarily think crying's because you're sad all the time. I think it's probably just that like massive rush of feelings that you don't have any room for, and it just all like
Mm.
the dam breaks and it all rushes out. But in terms of what's next, so for me, I've got some like exciting business stuff. I
Mm.
think having taken some time off work while I was away and taken some time to reflect, I've realized that how I run my business right now doesn't necessarily work for me that well. Like it works for me in the sense of I earn money and I get to work for myself. Like I have a decent income and that's fine. It doesn't work for me in the sense of I this was the first proper time off I've taken for 2.5 years. I took a week in August this year,
Mm.
August 2022. Are we in 2022 or 2023? We're in
2022.
2022, aren't we? I've just lost track. I took a week in August, and that was the first week I've done in the last 2.5 years where I've not done check-ins with my clients.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just like emotionally exhausting. And I think anybody who works with people and like with people's emotions will vouch for this. It's really tiring. I know we discussed that about
I
um
coached on mass for like
yeah.
10 years, yeah, and you pour so much of you into it, and you
Mm.
don't really get any. You have to be very careful with your boundaries. You'll know far better than I will that it requires so much more than you than perhaps other things you could do with your time.
And I felt myself, I think, especially over the past year, I've really felt myself fading. So I think it's highlighted to me, and I feel renewed and invigorated by this time off. And I know that that tends to like people need holidays, but I think feeling like I need a holiday every other week probably isn't the way that I need to run my business.
I would also like to see you just be more selfish. And as much as selfish has negative connotations, I just think there's so much more of you could give if you allowed yourself to focus on yourself. That sounds a bit
Yeah,
weird, but does that make sense?
no, it makes sense. So like I do one-to-one check-ins with my clients. And it's not like I don't do it in the sense of like we have a video call or we have a sit down and we have like a session like a therapist would, but I'll sit and go through their entire week and it usually takes around 20 to 30 minutes per person. Like I only have 15 to 20 one-to-one clients. I'm a massive introvert. So like having 15 to 20 one-to-one clients at a time and doing 15 to 20 check-ins spread out over the like sometimes it's all in one day.
Yeah.
But you'll always have people that check in a bit late and then you have that initial check-in and then you have the back and forth, which it works really well for people and people get loads out of it. And I love providing that service.
Hmm.
But I don't know if I can't sustain it. And there's a reason that people don't stay in this industry for like that long. There's
Yeah.
a huge dropout rate. And it's a reason there's a huge dropout rate in healthcare in general. Like doctors drop out because it's fucking exhausting. There's a shortage of GPs because it's fucking exhausting having
Yeah.
a new person with a new problem every 10 minutes all
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
10 hours straight.
You get empathy exhaustion, don't you? You know, that,
Yeah.
that 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 fatigue is a real thing. You know, paramedics average length of career is like 5 years, and I think GPs they have to train for like 4 years, and then
Yeah.
a lot of them don't do it for much longer than 7 or 8.
Yeah. Like a lot of nurses don't make it past the first year after they graduate because of that empathy exhaustion. So I think I've realized that I need to move to a model that's probably a bit less intensive. And this is where the Fat Loss Handbook method's coming in. So while I was away, the work that I did was editing the videos for the Fat Loss Handbook method and like
Yeah.
doing some recording and stuff. And so that's going to be a ten week basically fat loss course,
Well, that'll be out
which
by the time this comes out.
yeah, I hope so, which teaches
Fucking better
people
be.
better be. It's taken long enough. I kind of set on it as a bit of a pet project. Like I generally have a bit of a passion project going alongside my work. But one of the things about one-to-one coaching is that it takes so much out of me. I then don't have the energy to do the good stuff, like the fun stuff that I really
Yeah,
enjoy doing.
yeah,
So I sacrifice creating content for like that can help hundreds, if not thousands of people to help those 20 people. And I love helping those 20 people. I don't want them to ever feel like I don't love it. But I know that I can be more effective by
yeah,
working differently. So I
yeah.
want to be able to work with a few hundred people in the Fat Loss Handbook method with like less intensive check-ins, probably like a cheaper service as well, which is probably going to work well for people in this
Yeah.
cost of living crisis time. Really teaching people how to lose weight compassionately without sacrificing their entire life. Like I don't want to work with the bodybuilders that want to get shredded. I want to work with Jane from down the street who just wants to like get to meal times and kind of be excited about it again instead of like dreading what she's going to eat because she hates herself and hates her body and hates her weight. And I want her to feel great and be able to go climb that mountain with that group of girlfriends that are going off to do Snowdon
Hmm.
in a month's time. Like I want to help those people. And then we also have a very exciting project, like business number two is in the
Yeah.
pipeline. So in a coffee shop, which is super exciting. I'm
That'll be
going
a
back to my
massive
roots.
adventure. You'd be great at that. When we were speaking about it when we were away, just that marrying of nutrition and the healthcare aspect, and just how authentic and honest you and your partner both are. To be fair, having learned a lot about Simon, I think that's going to be a really unique. Hopefully, if it all comes to fruition, that's going to be such a unique blend. And I think it allows you to put more of you into it as well because of your authenticity of all the studies that you've done and everything that you've been involved with for so long now.
Yeah, and it goes back to my roots as well. Like
Yeah.
I started as a pastry chef. I finished my A levels and everyone went, "What do you want to do?" And I was like, "I want to bake." And they were like, "That's not a real thing." And I was like, "Watch me." I went to college for a year and did bakery and patisserie and worked at restaurants while I did my nutrition degree. Um, so yeah, I'm going back to like the kind of original thing that I loved. And I've wanted to do this coffee shop since I was probably about 9. Like it's been like the little dream. And I think it has almost been a pipe dream up until this point, where it's like, actually, no, you know what, I'm gonna do it. So this is happening. And then I think I've got my eye on some racing that I want to
I was
do.
going to
There's a
say that final bit is that adventurous muscle of yours because I think a few people have had those challenges of when they return back to normal life and their friend or their partner or their whatever clearly hasn't had the same experience. And the sheer fact that they perhaps didn't want to volunteer themselves for something similar to this says that there's an unmet need within that person, and you have a real adventurous streak within
I
you.
do.
So how do you feed that without distancing yourself from everybody you know and love as well?
So first thing, we're running an open water swimming retreat next year. One of my clients is an open water swimming instructor, and we've become really good friends as well as her being one of my clients. And her relationship with food is incredible now. Like she's just an incredible human being. She's been through so much. But we basically went, we'd love to share this passion for open water swimming with other people. So we're basically going to take people to splash around in the waterfalls, like in a safe, supportive environment. Because a lot of people want to get into adventurous stuff, but
Yeah,
don't feel like they go on their own. So
yeah,
we want to
yeah.
take a group of like beginner, intermediate open water swimmers and take them to the Peak District and swim in waterfalls and shit with them and have a really magical time.
That'd
So
be
that's
fucking
happening.
great. Hiring like a nice lodge or a nice little cabin or a cottage or something like that, because there's some amazing ones. We do a lot of our recruitment stuff around the lakes in the Peak District, and there's some
Mhm.
stunning places to just like nestle yourself away and have a weekend. It's amazing.
Yeah, like I'm so excited for it. And
I think that'd be a real good niche thing, actually. I think that you price it right, people would really be interested in having all of that. For want of a better description, faff. Like because you've done loads of the traveling, you've been to a lot of these places already yourself.
yeah,
Having a map for the weekend saying this is what we're going to do, this is what you're going to eat. I haven't got to worry about anything. We'll take you to
we
some
found the
incredible
places, we'll take
places.
you there. Here's
Yeah,
your kit
that'd be
list.
great.
I'm really excited about it. So we just need to like actually crack on and plan it now and start
Yeah,
advertising and get some people on board. But it's going to be super limited places. We're going to probably take like 10 people. So
yeah,
it's going to be like quite exclusive. And if it goes well, we'll probably run another one in the summer. That's probably going to be like May time. Oh,
that'd
can't
be
wait.
great. Yeah. because it's less like the online side stuff of everything you do now. This, having been in your presence, it's a very magnetic place to be, and I think people would love to be able to actually do that side of it with you as well.
Yeah. We're going to then combine a lot of like the nutrition type stuff in there as well. So it's going
Yeah,
to be a very
it'd be
holistic.
like a whole immersive experience as well, because they'd ask you a million questions,
Mm,
versus picking up PDFs here and there. That fully immersive experience would be a
yeah.
massive game changer. That's why like Tony Robbins does his weekends and stuff like that, for better or worse. But there's just the sheer fact of having an immersive experience with somebody, I think, is so much more powerful.
Yeah, it really is. And then do you know what? I just have a load of racing that I want to do. I really want to do an eco challenge. There's the 250-kilometer multi-day ultra marathon in Sri Lanka that I've got my eye on. I've
I'm
got a
not doing
list of
ultra marathons with you. Stay in the eco challenge world, because I know there's a couple of us in the group that would love to do that. If it's something where we're going to be rowing, hiking, climbing, and all that sort of stuff, I am 100% there. Not that we have to do anything together, but I would love to, because we were watching the eco challenge stuff when we were over there, and that is
one of the
most
few things that you can
definitely.
watch abroad on Prime.
Yes, yeah. There was not a massive selection, but yeah, that's the first time I'd learned about something like that, and that's
Mm,
100% on my street. And I know there's a couple of members of the team that maybe would want to do it.
yeah, I'm so down because I think it's like you guys have already like I think everybody there has already proven that they're adventurous, they're fit, and they're like ready to go,
Yeah.
and can do stuff like that. So I think there's definitely people there who'd like it'd make an amazing team. I think it'd make a great story as well. Like it's what a great group of people.
Yeah,
We've already sort of bonded a little bit as well, but I feel so close to everybody in that group.
yeah.
Um, like I think when you sleep in a you sleep on the floor in the jungle with I'm still covered in ant bites from that.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I must have. Did you have to do
Which one was? Oh no,
it?
we didn't go out in the middle of the night. There was only like two groups that went out in the middle of the night, because you were there during all the really shit bit. That was you with the thunderstorms and everything, wasn't it?
So much equipment got fried. That's why they pulled us in because the lightning struck up one of the production porter cabins,
No
and the
way.
yeah loads of equipment got fried. And they're probably like, you should probably get those people that are sleeping outside under a tree in the storm and probably bring them inside. It was so cold as well. Um, because we would obviously just been in wet kit all day and we
Yeah.
were still soaking wet. And then it started raining and it was like, okay, we're wet. And like it was warm, but it wasn't warm enough to stop you being just like absolutely soaked through
Yeah.
and like cold to your bones. And I think I was the only one that was like shivering. I don't have any fat on me anyway to protect any of that. So I was suffering. And I was just remember like lying there just shaking and Scott being like, "You're right." And I was like, "I'm just a bit cold." They were great though. But like I think once you've slept on the floor with a group of people, you're gonna stay friends with them for
Yeah.
life.
Well, look, we're definitely going to see everybody when it all goes out. Did they say we're doing a casting thing, or we're going to see it all together like a premiere thing in like
I
the
think
Jan
so.
Feb of the year? That'd be great. That'd be great to see everybody.
I think we should all wear our boots. I think you should be able to like get your nice dress on with boots underneath.
I think a bunch of people didn't get to keep some of their stuff. I kept my boots. I nicked loads of stuff.
I've got my
I think
boots.
I was kind of lucky because I actually got sent to hospital with all of my stuff.
Yeah, you
So
did.
I kind of fell through a loophole and actually ended up bringing a load of crap home with me. Whereas everybody else, I think, they did the whole transition and had a
I've got my
chat and sort
watch.
of had everything. Did you keep your
Doesn't
watch?
work
I've got my
anymore.
watch. I've strapped it to the outside of my bag. It doesn't work, but yeah.
Yours doesn't work either. I think so. I don't think these are actual Swiss Army watches. I think they were like
I think
knockoffs
they've
from a
got some
Hanoi
cheap shit
market.
off Amazon, to be fair, because I think we were all given watches, like 20 watches, weren't there? I think like day three, like one of them was left working.
Yeah, mine was left working.
Yeah.
And so many people's like straps had fallen off. Mine actually like sliced into my wrist when I was carrying Becca.
Jesus.
It hurt so much. And then I put her down and you're like, pick her up. And I was like, oh, I just want to just a watch, but I've got to carry Becca. When we were like baby carrying, she did well because I think she weighs less than I do. And I'm like, I think I'm deceptively heavy for
You're
like my
dense.
size.
Because,
I'm
yeah, because you've
dense.
got muscle.
So I think she got the short end of she got the short straw there, I think. But yeah, I was like carrying Becca and this watch was just like slicing into my wrist and it hurt so much. And the flipping water bottles that kept falling out of their pouches and
Yeah, they were a bit cack, weren't they?
everyone lost kit. It was so bad. But yeah, I've got my boots, my watch, I've got a t-shirt, And I've got my cycling shorts as well. I gave my trousers
Yeah,
back.
I
I
never get
wanted to bring them
shorts.
home just so I could dip them in the bath and make everyone hold them and see how heavy they were. Be like, this is what we were doing. This is what I was wearing. Did you, question for you, did you find jogging on the spot the most demoralizing thing ever?
Yeah, high knees was just shit. I would
So
rather crawl or do burpees or do press ups or do anything. But yeah, jogging on the spot was random and crap.
it was shit, wasn't it? And I don't know why. That's the bit that really sticks in my head as being like the hardest bit. And I think it's because those trousers were so heavy when they were wet,
Yeah.
and your boot, like you had heavy boots on, and like even the
Well,
boots
mine
weren't
were
even
always full
heavy,
with
but
sand as well, so my thighs went red raw because once you got sand inside your trousers, every time you just did anything, it was just chafing like hell. But that's one of the things.
On the first day, because I wore shorts when we did for like day one, and when we did that
Yeah,
crawl through the swamp on the first day, the inside of my thighs got absolutely shredded by branches and vines and stuff.
yeah.
And
That was a thing for me. I knew that's why I wanted to wear trousers on the first day. When I saw a bunch of people in the fucking Power Rangers gear or whatever, I was like, that's a fucking bad move. That's
yeah,
not gonna go well.
it was a terrible idea because I didn't I don't know, in my naivety I was like, we won't be doing anything that's actually going to like hurt us depending on what we're wearing.
I
It
did
may be just
anticipate getting
hurt us.
changed sooner than we did. Thought we were gonna go and like get stripped and get our stuff on, then go. Whereas we
Yeah,
actually started in just our crap anyway. I think
yeah,
that probably took a few people by surprise.
yeah. I imagined so what I thought they were going to make us do is I thought they were going to be like, right, strip, and I thought they were going to make us swim to camp in our knickers. That's what I thought was going to
Ah,
happen. I'd have loved that. That'd been great, but
yeah,
that'd been so much fun. But yeah, I thought that was going to happen, but sadly not. But yeah, like got absolutely shredded, and thank God for those cycle shorts because that was so painful.
yeah,
You know, after we did the tunnel,
yeah,
I didn't have my cycle shorts on then, and and I went for like, I don't know if you were there, but I went for, because we know we just had to go like pee on the side of the road.
yeah.
And I went for a wee with like Ross and someone else. It might have been Zach. And I stood up afterwards and I was like, look at my leg. And I just had like my knickers on, my trousers like halfway down my leg. They're like, oh my God. And like everything just kind of goes out the window, I think,
Oh
when
yeah,
you're literally like squatting down in the grass, just like, because you know, when we got out the bus as well, and we're all the girls were just like squatted down together, like having a chat while we're all having a wee. And it was just like,
that was the
oh, you're
simplicity
thinking,
that I really loved about it all. Everyone, when you took away all the bullshit, and there was almost a strange thing about wearing all the same stuff and not having your own identity, which I kind of liked. Because, like in normal
yeah,
life, when people have got their own nice clothes, or they've got special watches, or they've got a better phone than somebody else, or they've got their own gadgets, they are almost the beginnings of what divides groups. Whereas when
I
you
agree
strip
with
all
that.
of that away, it was, everyone just got on straight away, because you didn't have all the technology, you didn't have all the waffle, you didn't have all the BS. And it's amazing how much you've got in common with everybody else and how comfortable you become with everybody else in terms of
Yeah.
just stripping off and feeling able to be around each other.
Like that first day when everyone was having a shower in their clothes, and
Yeah.
we were just like, I'm not, no, come on, off.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly that happens.
It takes a couple of people to break down those barriers, I think.
Yeah, it does. Well, look, I absolutely loved it. I really had an amazing time with it. It's definitely a panging to go back and the way it all kind of finished. But I
Yeah,
really
same.
appreciate you coming on and being super honest about some of the stuff you've spoken about today, because I have not had any personal experiences with it. I know my partner has had similar aspects to it, but I think it's probably a lot more common than people think.
1 in 4 women,
Shit, is that really how it is?
something like that, which is, it's terrifying. Or like will experience some kind of sexual assault, which doesn't necessarily mean like rape, but means some kind of like sexual violence or something like that.
It's a lot more common than people think it is, though.
Yeah, and if you think about a room with 100 women in it, like 25 of those, even there were 10 women on the course,
Yeah,
4 of those had probably experienced something like that.
that's a scary number.
Terrifying.
Well, I appreciate you coming on and talking about it, and I appreciate your honesty with it and going for something like that. I can't wait to see you in when it'll be coming out. Hopefully, we'll just get together before then, though.
I think we need to.
Good.
Yeah. I think, oh, do you know what though? I have a feeling that the first episode is just going to be like, Charlotte's having a panic attack again. Oh, look, Charlotte's having a panic attack. Oh, did you see Charlotte? She's having a panic attack again.
Don't do that. Don't do that. I think it's quite nice that they're doing that kind of private premiere as well. I didn't realize they were going to do that because that then gives you the opportunity before it's just ripping the Band-Aid off, and it kind of gives you a heads up of knowing what it's going to be when it comes out as well.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. I'm kind of sad that I only made it to day 2, but
How old are you?
27.
27, you're a baby. This is a comma, it's not a full stop. Okay? Send my love to Simon, send my love to everybody. Give that puppy a big cuddle from me, all right?
Give yours a massive cuddle from me.
Yeah, and for anybody that I'm on about our actual dog, there's not like a euphemism. She's got, she's got a border collie puppy. I've got a German Shepherd puppy. There's not something fucking weird going on there.
I've got a border collie, and they are both very cute. Yeah, we're going to have to get together before that for like dog walks and stuff. Thank you so much.
And everybody my love. And I'll speak to you soon.
I will do. And your family as well. See you later.
Firefighters Podcast is put together to develop, inspire, and hopefully even motivate those individuals who have chosen to serve our communities and be part of the first responder family. It's brought to you by myself, Operational Firefighter Pete Wakefield. If you have enjoyed today's episode and you want to see the podcast continuing, please head over to our Patreon page where you can support the ongoing efforts of the podcast. Please hit that follow, subscribe, or rate button on whatever platform you're listening to. Please support your emergency services responders, and thank you for listening.